are joined now by Willem Westra van Holthe. He is the Minister for Mines and Energy for the Northern Territory of Australia. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Casey, great to be with you.
I've noticed during the day here that you have been talking to a lot of people, you've been interacting, lots of stuff going on, and this is your first visit here to an Oil Council event. So what kind of message are you getting out?
Well, look, obviously there are some deep concerns across the whole industry around the current oil price and the implications and the ramifications of that. But overall, it's a very positive conference. The sentiment going forward is very, very good. But with the rider on it, I suppose that in between now and maybe into the short to medium term, that it's still going to be tough in the industry, and we're going to see some winding back of some projects across the whole world.
So what are you telling folks about the Northern Territory? Why in this tough economic time where they might have limited resources to spend, limited energy, time, why should they come to the Northern Territory?
Well, look, to put it in a nutshell, the Northern Territory is a really good place to invest. You've got a very, very supportive government, one that is completely committed to developing the oil and gas industry for our economy, but for the greater good also of the Asian region, recognising that the Northern Territory will have a greater role in time providing energy security to our Asian neighbours. The government, as I say, is extremely supportive of the industry. We've spent a lot of money compiling pre-competitive geoscience information. We've set up collaborative drilling programs to encourage explorers to come to the Territory, and we're still in the very early stages of development in the Territory. We've got operations by Santos, who have been with the Territory for quite a number of years now in the south, but a huge prospectivity in other sedimentary basins across the Northern Territory's landmass. We're a big part of the country. We're 1.3 million square kilometres, only a population of 240 odd thousand people, and still a lot of great development to happen in the oil and gas industry.
Being in Singapore, hearing that kind of population undensity is really attractive. There's a lot of room for growth then, I would think.
Well, look, there is, and it makes operating in the Territory a lot easier, even in terms of land access issues. Certainly we have to have some robust relationships in place between oil and gas companies and landholders, but because of the sparse population, there are fewer landholders to have to deal with than you might find in some of the other more populated parts of Australia. So even something as simple as that can make a difference to oil and gas companies and how they might operate.
But that might also be a double-edged sword, because I'm wondering if you have any challenges in terms of infrastructure, in terms of labor, in terms of support industries around the oil and gas industry that might be a challenge in the Northern Territory.
Look, there is one big challenge right across all of regional and remote Australia, and that is around infrastructure. Certainly we need more roads, ports and bridges and all those sorts of things. And we're always turning our eyes to the Commonwealth Government for assistance in that regard. But we're certainly also looking towards big companies coming in, making investments in the Northern Territory, seeing the potential and asking them to co-invest in some of those infrastructure projects that we know they need to get their projects up and running.
You'd mentioned earlier energy security, and I think that's a pretty big issue. What are you hearing about that at this conference, and what are you doing in the Northern Territory to ensure that, not just for Australia, but as you said, for the neighbours that you have in this region?
Well, look, the Northern Territory has always seen itself as a good neighbour to Asia, and we've had relationships into a number of Asian countries now for many years, particularly around the live cattle trade. And Indonesia being a case in point, now Vietnam also. But over the course of the last few years, we recognise just how important energy security is, just as food security is, to those relationships across the greater Asian region. So what we see is that the Northern Territory has a big role to play in providing some of that energy security. Government is working pretty closely with industry itself. We're trying to open up as many of the prospective areas as we possibly can. We want to bring projects on as quickly as possible, recognising that we're in a difficult climate right now, but we've got a long-term vision. We see that this is not about the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. This is more about the next 15 to 20 years and those sort of timeframes. The Territory has, we believe, somewhere around 200 trillion cubic feet of gas reserves, mostly locked up in deep shale across a number of sedimentary basins. that's going to take time to recover. And even if we only recover a portion of it, it's still a significant amount of gas that will no doubt have some role to play in energy security for Asia.
So does it being that it's deep shale and harder to get at, does that scare people away, or is that just something more of a challenge for them now?
Well, look, you probably wouldn't describe some of our resources as low-hanging fruit, and there are some challenges around that, but we've got some really interested players, big players globally, looking in the Northern Territory at the moment. Of course, Santos are looking at expanding their operations. We've got Origin. We even have companies like Inpex looking onshore in the Northern Territory, and we're hoping that they might be successful in a bid for some onshore land, which will augment what they're doing with the Ichthys project. The Ichthys project being a huge offshore development, an 800 kilometre gas pipeline from a field that's off the Western Australian coast coming into Darwin, and they're in the process now of building 2 processing trains with room for a number of other trains as well. We're hoping that we can build upon the INPEX success story. It certainly shows that the Territory can handle big projects, and we want other companies to see that as a successful big investment by a foreign national in Australia, in the Northern Territory, and come and follow behind INPEX.
So you say that you are looking at the long haul, 15 to 20 years down the line, but to shrink the timeline a little bit, can you point to other successes, maybe just in the past year in this challenging environment, and also maybe something that you're looking forward to in 2015, something that's very quickly going to be on the books and as a success?
Sure. Look, last year in 2014, the Northern Territory Government issued the first hydrocarbon production licences for 30 odd years. So we count that as a big success, and that's an environment we've created as a government to allow companies to come in and operate. Going further forward into 2015 and even the next couple of years after that, we have a number of companies who have got significant work programs in place and ready to go. We know that there's going to be tens of millions of dollars worth of exploration done over the course of the next couple of years, trying to prove up what we think is in a resource in a number of basins across the Territory. So if we see those projects come to fruition, and I think we're looking at probably a 5 to 7 year timeline for those ones, then we'll count that as a massive success for the Territory.
Yeah, and that also gives you something to show people.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's fair enough to be prospective, but we also have to provide an environment where companies are comfortable to invest in the Territory. They need political stability, they want a government that's going to be supportive and doing everything that they possibly can to help their project get across the line.
So now that you've had a day or so to immerse yourself in this event, what kind of things are you hearing from people? What are you learning that you will then take back to the Northern Territory that maybe you weren't aware of before?
Look, I think what I take back to the Territory is that, right now we're going through pretty tough times, and certainly just by following the oil price, you can see that things are not good in the industry and probably will take a little while to recover. But I guess taking it back to the Territory now will be that we can expect to see a bit of a slowdown in capital expenditure and some operational expenditure as well, and we need to be prepared for that. But the future is bright. There's no doubt in my mind that once the industry starts to recover from where it is at the moment, that we're going to see much more exploration and expansion right across Australia, but certainly in the Northern Territory in those prospective parts.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. We've been speaking to Willem Westra van Holthe. He is the Minister for Mines and Energy for the Northern Territory of Australia.